Did you know that your shoes could be secretly sabotaging your independence? It's a shocking truth that affects millions of adults over 60, yet nobody's talking about it. Every year, thousands of seniors lose their mobility not because of age, but because of what they put on their feet. Think about it. When was the last time you really looked at your shoes? The very footwear you trust to keep you safe might be setting you up for a devastating fall. In fact, research shows that 83% of senior falls are directly linked to inappropriate footwear choices. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal the hidden dangers lurking in your shoe closet and share game-changing solutions that could literally save your life. You'll discover why even your most trusted shoes might be your worst enemies, and learn exactly how to choose footwear that preserves your independence. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that bell to stay informed about protecting your mobility. Your future self will thank you. 1. What if the single greatest threat to your independence wasn't a health condition, but something you buy at a department store? Every year, emergency rooms see a flood of patients over 60, not for heart attacks, but for falls. And the silent accomplice in so many of these incidents is the very thing we trust to protect us: our shoes. Consider Thomas, a retired engineer. Meticulous, active, he prided himself on his health. Yet, he found himself increasingly clumsy. He'd trip on a perfectly flat sidewalk, stumble on his own rug. He chalked it up to getting older, a loss of grace. He never once suspected his footwear. He thought as long as they were comfortable, he was safe. He was wrong. What Thomas and millions like him don't realize is that the human foot undergoes profound, yet invisible, transformations after the age of 60. The natural shock absorbers, the fat pads on the soles of your feet, begin to thin out. Imagine the plush, built-in cushioning you had at 25 has deflated, leaving you walking on what feels like bare bone against hard pavement. Your foot's sophisticated communication system begins to degrade too. Your soles are packed with nerve receptors that act like a high-definition GPS, constantly feeding your brain information about terrain and balance. With age, this system loses its resolution. The signal becomes fuzzy, delaying the split-second corrections your brain needs to make to prevent a fall. You don't feel the ground with the same clarity. A cruel paradox emerges. As your feet lose their padding and sensory feedback, the joints within them become more sensitive and reactive to every jolt. It's like driving a car with a worn-out suspension. You feel every single bump, and each one sends a shockwave up through your ankles, knees, and hips. Thomas was unknowingly battling all these changes, and his choice of footwear was making everything exponentially worse. He had no idea that 8 specific, seemingly innocent habits were systematically destroying his stability. These aren't just minor inconveniences. They're the difference between walking confidently into your 80s and spending your golden years afraid to leave the house. The good news? Once you understand what's happening inside your feet and learn to spot the warning signs in your current shoes, you can take control. 3 revolutionary solutions can rebuild your foundation from the ground up, giving you back the confidence to walk anywhere, anytime, without fear. 2. Millions of women spent decades wearing what they believed were sensible shoes, those modest 1 or 2 inch heels that seemed like a responsible choice compared to towering stilettos. Yet these seemingly harmless shoes have been quietly destroying feet for generations. Take the case of a museum curator who spent 35 years guiding visitors through marble halls in her signature low-heeled Oxfords. She prided herself on choosing comfort over fashion, never understanding why her colleagues complained about their feet. Now, at 68, every morning brings the same ritual of pain, sharp, burning sensations across the balls of her feet that make even putting on slippers an ordeal. The physics behind this damage are straightforward but devastating. When you lift your heel just 1 inch off the ground, you shift up to 75% more pressure onto the front of your foot. Picture your foot as a seesaw. Any lift at the back forces everything forward into a cramped, overloaded space. This constant pressure creates a domino effect of destruction. The big toe gets pushed inward, forming painful bunions. The smaller toes, squeezed into narrowing toe boxes, buckle and twist into rigid hammer toes. These aren't just cosmetic problems, They're permanent structural changes that cause daily pain. But the most insidious damage happens at the back of your leg. Spending decades with your foot angled downward keeps your Achilles tendon and calf muscles in a perpetually shortened position. After years of this, they lose their natural flexibility and literally forget how to stretch properly. This explains why many women discover that switching to completely flat shoes after retirement actually increases their pain. Their shortened tendons and muscles can no longer handle the natural walking motion they were designed for. It's like trying to straighten a wire that's been coiled for decades. It fights back with every step. The museum curator's pain didn't appear overnight when she turned 65. It was accumulating with every step she took across those marble floors for 35 years. Her sensible choice was actually a slow-acting poison, and the bill for that damage only came due after 60. The cruel irony is that many women who experience this late-onset foot pain blame aging itself, never realizing that their careful shoe choices were the real culprit. They spent decades believing they were protecting their feet, when in reality, they were systematically destroying them one step at a time. Understanding this connection between seemingly modest heels and long-term foot damage is crucial for anyone over 60 who's suddenly dealing with unexplained foot pain. The solution isn't just about changing shoes now. It's about recognizing that some damage may be permanent and learning to work with what remains. 3. Summer brings that familiar sound, the gentle thwack, thwack, thwack of flip-flops hitting pavement. It's the soundtrack of vacation and relaxation. But here's what most people don't realize. That innocent sound signals a biomechanical disaster that's quietly setting you up for chronic pain after 60. The real problem with flip-flops isn't just the lack of support. It's what they force your foot to do. To keep these shoes from flying off with every step, your toes have to constantly claw downward, gripping the sole. Your toes weren't designed for this job. They're meant to push off the ground and help with balance, not spend all day clenched like a fist around a piece of rubber. This creates constant tension in the delicate muscles and ligaments running along your foot's bottom. Think of it like holding a stress ball all day. Eventually, your hand would cramp and ache. That's exactly what's happening to your feet. Meet George. After decades of work, he and his wife finally took their dream retirement trip to Florida. For 2 glorious weeks, he strolled the boardwalks in his favorite flip-flops, feeling completely free. No dress shoes, no constraints, just pure vacation bliss. On his last morning there, George swung his legs out of bed and felt like he'd stepped on broken glass. A searing pain shot through his heel. He figured it was just vacation feet and would disappear once he got home. It didn't. He developed plantar fasciitis, a direct result of 2 weeks of toe gripping every single step. But here's where a foot problem becomes a whole body crisis. When you're constantly gripping with your toes and walking on a completely flat surface, your entire walking pattern changes. You start taking shorter, shuffling steps to keep control of the shoe. This throws your whole body out of whack. Your knee expects your foot to roll smoothly through each step. Instead, it gets a jarring, flat impact. To deal with this shock, your hip tilts slightly. After thousands of steps, this misalignment travels up to your lower back. That mysterious ache you can't pinpoint? It might not be your back at all. It's your broken foundation. Now, you might be thinking, I've worn flip-flops my whole life without problems. That's exactly the trap. Before 60, your body is incredibly good at covering up damage. You have the muscle strength and flexibility to compensate for poor mechanics. But after 60, that safety net disappears. The damage that was building silently for decades suddenly hits you all at once. The flip-flops that seemed harmless at 35 become a direct threat to your mobility at 65. You weren't immune to the damage. You were just borrowing against your future, and now the bill has come due. George's pain wasn't caused by those 2 weeks in Florida. It was triggered by them. The real damage happened over 40 years of occasional flip-flop wearing. Even after George switched back to his regular walking shoes, the pain stuck around. This was his first hint that maybe even his good shoes weren't as protective as he thought. Here's a simple test you can do right now. Put on a pair of flip-flops and take a few steps. Pay attention to your toes. Are they relaxed and flat? Or are they actively working, clenched tight to hold on? The tension you feel is the beginning of the problem. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires breaking a deeply ingrained habit. Your feet need shoes that stay on without any help from your toes. They need support that matches your foot's natural arch. Most importantly, they need to let your toes do their real job, helping you balance and push off powerfully with each step. Your feet carry you through life. After 60, they deserve better than a piece of rubber held on by willpower and toe strength. The summer soundtrack doesn't have to include the sound of future pain. 4. After that painful Florida lesson, George switched back to his expensive athletic sneakers. They looked perfect, barely anywhere on the outside, deep treads, clean laces. He figured these quality shoes would keep him safe. But within weeks, a deep ache started gnawing at his right knee during his daily walks. George blamed everything except his shoes. Maybe it was the Florida trip catching up with him. Maybe this was just what happened when you hit 70. He never suspected those pristine-looking sneakers were the culprit. Here's what George didn't know. The heart of every athletic shoe is made from EVA foam. Picture it like the foam padding inside a shipping box for fragile electronics. Millions of tiny air pockets designed to absorb impact. But every time you take a step, you're crushing those pockets. After about 500 miles of walking, roughly 6 months if you walk regularly, that foam loses nearly half its shock-absorbing power. The tricky part? This breakdown happens completely invisibly. Your shoe can look brand new on the outside while being totally useless on the inside. It's like having a car with perfect paint but no brakes. When your shoe stops doing its job, something else has to absorb all that impact. That force shoots straight up through your foot, your ankle, and lands right in your knee. George's knee wasn't wearing out from age. It was crying for help because it was doing the work his dead sneakers had abandoned. Think about the math here. A good pair of walking shoes costs around $120. One cortisone shot for knee pain, that's $250, and it's just a temporary fix. Knee replacement surgery? We're talking $30,000 to $50,000 plus months of painful recovery. Wearing shoes until they fall apart isn't being thrifty. It's setting yourself up for medical bills that could devastate your savings. So how do you know when your shoes have secretly given up on you? Forget looking at them. Try this simple test. Grab your most worn shoe and hold the heel in one hand, the toe in the other. Now twist it like you're wringing out a dish rag. A shoe that's still doing its job will resist you. It'll feel solid and stable. A shoe that's broken down inside will twist easily, almost folding like a piece of wet cardboard. That flexibility isn't comfort, it's structural failure. Your shoe is waving a white flag, but it's doing it silently. George eventually replaced those sneakers, and his knee pain disappeared within days. He thought he'd finally cracked the code on staying pain-free. But as he'd soon discover, the shoes that looked the most innocent, the ones waiting quietly by his front door, were about to teach him an even more expensive lesson. 5. George had conquered his sneaker problem and felt confident about his outdoor footwear choices. But the real danger wasn't lurking in his closet. It was right there on his feet every morning when he shuffled to the kitchen for coffee. Those comfortable, backless slippers that millions of seniors slip into each day are actually the leading cause of falls inside the home. Here's what most people don't realize about backless slippers. They create a completely unstable platform for your ankle. Unlike a proper shoe with a heel counter, that's the firm cup around the back of your heel, these slippers allow your foot to slide around inside. Even the tiniest sideways movement, just a fraction of an inch, can throw off your entire balance system. Think of it like trying to stand on a skateboard that's not quite under your feet. Your ankle needs a solid, predictable base to make those split-second adjustments that keep you upright. When your foot can shift unexpectedly inside a loose slipper, your ankle loses that crucial stability. Biomechanical research shows this type of footwear reduces ankle stability by up to 65%. Consider what happened to Helen, a retired teacher from Wisconsin. She was simply walking across her living room carpet to turn off a lamp when her foot shifted slightly sideways inside her slipper. That tiny, unexpected movement was all it took. Her ankle, lacking the support structure to compensate, gave way completely. The fall resulted in a broken wrist and months of physical therapy. She wasn't rushing, wasn't carrying anything heavy, and wasn't navigating stairs. Her own footwear betrayed her on perfectly level ground. This is why backless slippers are linked to 38% of all indoor falls among seniors. They feel safe and comfortable during normal walking, which creates a false sense of security. But the moment your foot encounters any unexpected surface change, a slightly raised threshold, a wrinkle in a rug, even transitioning from hardwood to carpet, that loose fit becomes dangerous. The solution isn't complicated, but it does require breaking a deeply ingrained habit. Proper indoor shoes with heel support and a secure fit can reduce your fall risk by 62%. Look for slippers that actually hold your foot in place, with either a backstrap or a full heel cup. Your feet might need a few days to adjust to the more secure feeling, but that slight initial discomfort is nothing compared to the months of recovery from a preventable fall. Before you take another step around your house, look down at what you're wearing. Are those slippers actually supporting your stability, or are they just loose coverings that your foot has to constantly fight to control? The difference between these two scenarios could literally be the difference between staying on your feet and ending up on the floor. 6. Your favorite house shoes are betraying you, and you probably don't even know it. That comfortable pair you slip into every morning? The soles are getting polished smooth by your own floors. Every step you take is slowly grinding away the tiny bumps and ridges that keep you upright. Think of a new shoe sole like coarse sandpaper. It grips everything. After months of walking on hardwood, tile, or linoleum, those microscopic ridges get worn down until the sole becomes as slick as a wet bar of soap. The shoe looks fine from the outside, but underneath, you've lost most of your traction. Here's what happened to my neighbor Margaret. She was watering her kitchen herbs when a few drops splashed on her vinyl floor. Nothing dramatic, just a puddle the size of a quarter. Her house slippers, the ones she'd worn every day for 3 years, had soles polished smooth as glass. When her foot hit that tiny wet spot, she went down like she'd stepped on ice, broke her wrist in 2 places, and spent 6 weeks in a cast. The scary part? It wasn't the water that caused the fall. It was her shoes turning that harmless drip into a skating rink. You can test your own shoes right now. Go to your bathroom. That's usually the slickest floor in your house. Make sure it's completely dry first. Hold onto the sink or vanity with one hand. Then try sliding one foot across the tile. If your shoe glides easily with almost no resistance, you're walking around an accident waiting to happen footwear. I tell my patients to check their house shoes every few months this way. If they slide too easily, it's time for new ones. Don't wait for a fall to teach you this lesson. Your bones won't bounce back like they used to, and a simple slip can change everything. Replace those slippery soles before they replace your independence with a hospital bed. 7. Elizabeth had always been proud of her elegant black pumps. She'd worn them to her daughter's graduation, her son's wedding, and countless charity galas over the past 15 years. They were her go-to shoes for special occasions, always reliable, always comfortable. So when her granddaughter's wedding invitation arrived, she naturally reached for them. The morning of the wedding, something felt different. The shoes that had slipped on effortlessly for years now required a struggle. Elizabeth assumed her feet were a bit swollen from the humid weather and forced them on anyway. She wanted to look perfect for this special day. During the ceremony, she noticed a growing pressure across the balls of her feet. By the reception, that pressure had become a burning sensation. She shifted her weight from foot to foot, trying to find relief, but the burning persisted. Elizabeth endured it all, not wanting to miss a moment of her granddaughter's celebration. The next morning, she woke to sharp, electric pains shooting through her toes. The burning had been replaced by an alarming numbness that made walking feel like stepping on cotton balls. How could a pair of shoes she'd worn comfortably for years suddenly cause such distress? The answer lies in a gradual change that happens to everyone, but catches most people by surprise. Your feet don't stay the same size throughout your adult life. The 26 bones in each foot are held together by ligaments that act like elastic bands. Over the decades, these ligaments naturally lose some of their tension and begin to stretch. When this happens, your foot arch flattens slightly, and the bones across the front of your foot spread apart. By age 70, most people's feet have widened by half a shoe size or more. The key point is this widening happens across the foot, not in length. When you check if your shoes fit by wiggling your toes at the front, everything seems fine. Meanwhile, the sides of your feet are being slowly squeezed. Elizabeth's elegant pumps hadn't shrunk. Her feet had grown wider, and those shoes were now compressing the delicate nerves that run between her toe bones. This compression created the burning sensation during the wetting and the numbness that followed. For someone with diabetes or circulation problems, this scenario becomes genuinely dangerous. Constant pressure doesn't just squeeze nerves, it restricts blood flow. When blood can't reach the skin properly, even a small blister can't heal and may develop into an open sore. What starts as uncomfortable shoes can progress to a serious wound. Here's a simple test you can do right now. Remove the insole from one of your most worn pairs of shoes and place it on the floor. Stand on it with your bare foot and look down. If your foot extends beyond the edges of that insole, your shoes are too narrow, regardless of what size is printed on the label. Many people think the solution is obvious. Just go barefoot, especially at home. After all, isn't that the most natural way? For feet that have spent decades in shoes, walking barefoot on hard modern floors creates its own set of problems. Without the cushioning and support that proper footwear provides, the fat pads under your feet compress and thin out. Your joints work harder with each step. Small injuries become more likely on unforgiving surfaces like tile, hardwood, or concrete. The real solution isn't abandoning shoes or ignoring the changes in your feet. It's accepting that your shoe size from 20 years ago is history, not your current reality. Getting your feet properly measured and choosing shoes that accommodate their current width can prevent the nerve compression that turned Elizabeth's joyful celebration into a painful recovery. Your feet have carried you through decades of life. They've earned the right to comfortable shoes that fit the feet you have today, not the feet you remember having. 8. Look down at your kitchen floor right now. It appears spotless, doesn't it? That gleaming tile or hardwood seems perfectly safe. But for anyone with diabetes or reduced sensation in their feet, that innocent-looking surface is hiding microscopic dangers that could change your life forever. David learned this the hard way. After his diabetes diagnosis, his doctor warned him about foot care, but like most of us, he focused on the obvious threats: stepping on nails, broken glass, or sharp objects. What he didn't expect was that a single breadcrumb would nearly cost him his foot. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. David was making his usual turkey sandwich when a few dry crumbs scattered onto his kitchen floor. He didn't notice them fall, and later that evening, walking barefoot to get a glass of water, he felt the faintest prick on his sole. With diabetic neuropathy already dulling the sensation in his feet, the tiny jab barely registered. He brushed it off and went to bed. That seemingly harmless breadcrumb had created a microscopic puncture in his skin. Too small to see, too minor to feel, but just enough to let bacteria slip inside. For 2 days, David walked on that tiny wound, pressing dirt and germs deeper with each step. When he finally noticed a dark stain on his sock, the damage was done. What started as an invisible pinprick had become an angry, infected ulcer that required months of treatment. This isn't just David's story. Emergency rooms across the country see similar cases daily. A grain of rice, a small pebble tracked in from outside. Even a pet's food kibble can become a weapon against feet that can no longer feel properly. The cruel irony is that the people most at risk are often the most careful. They check their feet religiously, they keep their homes immaculate, they follow every diabetic foot care rule in the book. But they're fighting an invisible enemy. When you can't feel a tiny puncture, you can't protect against it. Dr. Martinez, who runs a diabetic foot clinic, sees this pattern repeatedly. Patients tell me their floors are clean, she explains, and they are clean to the naked eye. But clean doesn't mean safe when you're dealing with compromised sensation and slower healing. The solution isn't complicated, but it requires a shift in thinking. Your feet need a barrier between them and the floor, even indoors. Not thick hiking boots, not rigid dress shoes, but something that creates a protective layer while still allowing your feet to function naturally. This protection becomes even more critical when you consider that minor foot injuries in people over 60 take significantly longer to heal. What might be a 2-day inconvenience for a 30-year-old can become a weeks-long ordeal for someone with diabetes or circulation issues. The next time you're tempted to walk barefoot through your home, remember David S. Breadcrumb. Ask yourself, is the freedom worth the risk? Your feet have carried you through decades of life. They deserve protection from the hidden dangers lurking in plain sight on your own floors. 9. Here's the thing about buying one perfect pair of shoes. It feels so smart, so responsible. You research reviews, you spend good money, maybe $100 or more on quality walking shoes. They're comfortable, they've got great support, and you think, finally, I've got this figured out. But here's what nobody tells you. That one perfect shoe just became your biggest foot safety risk. Let me tell you about Dorothy. After a close call with those slippery dress shoes, she did exactly what seemed right. She bought a top-rated pair of New Balance walking shoes. Cushioned, supportive, highly recommended by her podiatrist. She wore them everywhere, morning walks, grocery shopping, working in her flower beds, even around the house for extra support. 3 months later, she twisted her ankle pulling weeds in her garden. Not badly enough for the emergency room, but enough to keep her off her feet for a week. The irony? Those expensive, safe shoes were exactly the wrong tool for that job. Walking shoes are engineered for one thing: moving forward on predictable, flat surfaces like sidewalks. They're built with flexibility in the toe area to help you push off with each step and plenty of cushioning to absorb impact. That's perfect for walking, but it's terrible for gardening. When you're in the garden, you're not just walking forward. You're pivoting, leaning, crouching, shifting your weight sideways. The soft, uneven ground demands stability in all directions. But that flexible walking shoe, it's designed to bend and give, which means your foot can shift and twist inside it when you need stability most. The same shoe creates different problems indoors. Those deep treads that grip outdoor surfaces perfectly can catch on the edge of area rugs, turning a simple step into a stumble. The thick cushion sole that feels so comfortable also raises you higher off the ground, making you less stable and more likely to roll an ankle on uneven surfaces. Think about it this way. You wouldn't use a butter knife as a screwdriver, would you? Different jobs need different tools. Your feet face completely different challenges when you're walking on a sidewalk versus working in soft soil versus moving around your kitchen. The cost of getting this wrong isn't just discomfort. One emergency room visit for a twisted ankle runs $300 to $500, even with insurance. Physical therapy adds hundreds more. But the real cost is losing your independence, even temporarily. I see this mistake constantly. People invest in one expensive pair, thinking they're being practical, when what they really need is the right shoe for each environment they move through. Your morning walk, your garden work, your time indoors. These aren't just different activities, they're different worlds that demand different protection. So look at your feet right now. What are you asking that one pair of shoes to do? If you're wearing your walking shoes to garden or your outdoor shoes inside the house, you're setting yourself up for exactly the kind of preventable injury that changes everything. The solution isn't more expensive shoes. It's smarter shoes. But before we talk about what to buy, we need to address something even more basic, something that's been wrong since you were a teenager. The way you've been measuring your feet for shoe size, it's been sabotaging you for decades. 10. Here's the thing about shoe shopping that nobody talks about. That metal measuring device at the store, the Brannick device, is giving you the wrong information. It measures your foot like it's a flat piece of cardboard, but your foot is actually a complex, three-dimensional structure that changes shape when you put weight on it. Think about it this way. Measuring your foot with that device is like trying to figure out what size shirt you need by only measuring your shoulder width. You're missing the whole picture. Let me tell you about James. After his painful vacation experience, he finally went to a specialty running store. He walked in confident, telling the salesperson, "I'm a 10.5, been that size for 40 years. The fitter just smiled and asked him to sit down. What happened next took almost 40 minutes, and it changed everything James thought he knew about his feet. First, the fitter measured both feet, not just one like most stores do. Turns out James's right foot was nearly a half size longer than his left when he was standing up. That was news to him. But here's where it got really interesting. The fitter didn't just focus on length. He actually felt around James's feet, checking where the bones were, looking for pressure points near the toes. He explained that when stores say wide, they usually just make the whole shoe bigger, like blowing up a balloon. But what James actually needed was more room in the toe area, while keeping the heel snug so his foot wouldn't slide around. The real eye-opener came when the fitter had James walk across a special mat that showed pressure points on a computer screen. See how your left ankle rolls inward when your foot hits the ground? The fitter pointed out. That's called overpronation. Your arch is collapsing because it's trying to absorb shock, but it doesn't have the right support. For the first time, James understood that his foot wasn't just a static block that needed to fit in a box. It was more like a machine with moving parts, and his machine wasn't working properly. The fitter didn't just sell him shoes, he diagnosed a mechanical problem. James walked out with size 11 shoes in a specific style, designed to prevent that inward rolling motion. A size and type he never would have picked on his own. When you go for professional fitting, you're not just buying shoes, you're getting an expert analysis of how your feet actually work. Here's what you need to ask. Can you measure both my feet while I'm standing up so we can see how my arches change when they're supporting my weight? Can you watch me walk and tell me if my feet roll in or out when I step? Based on my foot shape, not just the length, where do I need the most room, and where should the shoe fit snugly? This shoe feels comfortable standing here, but does it actually address the mechanical issues you noticed when I walked? Getting the right fit is the most powerful thing you can do for your stability. It's like building a house. Everything else depends on having a solid foundation. But here's something James learned quickly. Even his perfectly fitted new shoes weren't a magic solution for every situation. The shoes that were perfect for walking on pavement became a problem in his own house. The right fit was just the beginning, the first step in a much bigger strategy for staying safe and mobile. The truth is, no single pair of shoes can handle every surface and situation you'll encounter. That's why the next part of your strategy needs to address what happens when you're not wearing those perfectly fitted shoes at all. 11. A few days after getting his new walking shoes, James was heading from his living room to the kitchen when something unexpected happened. The thick, grippy sole that felt so secure on concrete caught the edge of his area rug. He stumbled forward, heart pounding, barely catching himself on the doorframe. The very shoe that made him feel confident outside had just become a hazard in his own home. That's when James realized something important. One shoe can't do everything. Just like you wouldn't use the same tool to fix your car and slice tomatoes, your feet need different shoes for different places. Think of it as building a simple three-part system. Your home shoes need to be completely different from your walking shoes. Inside your house, you want to feel the ground. This helps your brain know exactly where your feet are, which prevents falls. Look for shoes with thin, flexible soles and closed backs. The sole should grip your floors without being so aggressive that it catches on rugs or door thresholds. Many people make the mistake of wearing their thick walking shoes indoors, but that extra cushioning actually makes you less stable on familiar surfaces. Your everyday walking shoes are your workhorses. These are the shoes James got fitted at the store. They're built for sidewalks, grocery stores, and doctor visits. Their job is to protect your joints from hard surfaces and support your natural walking pattern. The cushioning absorbs impact, and the structure keeps your ankle from rolling inward or outward. Your activity shoes handle everything else. If you garden, play cards at the community center, or do yard work, your walking shoes can actually be dangerous. Walking shoes are designed for moving straight forward. When you bend, pivot, or step sideways while gardening, your foot can slide right off that cushioned platform, twisting your ankle. For these activities, you need shoes with wider, more stable bases and sides that support lateral movement. James didn't rush out and buy 3 expensive pairs. He got smart about it. His biggest risk was falling at home, so he spent $60 on quality indoor shoes first. He kept using his new walking shoes for errands and exercise. For yard work, he dug out an old pair of cross trainers from his closet. They were worn but still had the wide, stable sole he needed. Here's the reality check. Many older adults spend $20 to $30 monthly on pain relievers for sore feet and knees. That's over $240 a year just treating symptoms. A one-time investment in the right shoe system costs less and actually fixes the problem. After a few weeks with his 3-shoe system, James felt more confident everywhere he went. But he noticed something. His walking shoes, while good, didn't quite match the shape of his arch after long days on his feet. The system was working, but he wondered if there was a way to make any shoe fit like it was custom-made for his exact foot shape. Take a look in your closet right now. Do you have the right tool for each job? A safe indoor shoe, a supportive walking shoe, and something stable for your hobbies or yard work. Most people are missing at least one piece of this puzzle, and that gap might be where your next fall is waiting to happen. 12. James's 3-shoe system solved most of his problems, but a sharp ache in his arch during longer walks revealed the final missing piece. Even perfectly fitted shoes are designed for average feet, and James's feet were anything but average. Think of foot support like vision correction. Those gel insoles from the drugstore are like cheap reading glasses at the checkout counter. They provide general, blurry relief, but aren't made for your specific needs. Custom orthotics from a podiatrist are like prescription glasses, perfectly crafted for your foot's unique mechanics. They work incredibly well, but cost several $100s and often aren't necessary as a first step. There's a middle solution most people miss: heat moldable orthotics. For around $40, you get a semi-rigid insole that you warm in your oven for a few minutes. Place it in your shoe and stand on it for 2 minutes. As it cools, it molds to your exact arch and heel shape, creating personalized support. It's the difference between generic relief and customized comfort, for a fraction of prescription costs. When James tried heat moldable insoles in his walking shoes, he discovered something remarkable. That nagging arch pain only appeared on his neighborhood's slightly sloped asphalt path after exactly 12 minutes of walking. The insoles revealed that his left foot was compensating for a subtle ankle weakness he'd developed after a sprain years earlier. Once the insole supported his arch properly, his ankle could function normally again. If your doctor recommends prescription orthotics, insurance language matters enormously. Don't tell your physician, "My feet hurt." Explain your instability, your fear of falling, and how better support would improve your balance. The key phrase is therapeutic orthotics for fall prevention. This shifts the conversation from comfort to medical necessity. Fall prevention is a high-priority keyword in medical insurance because it's directly linked to expensive future costs like hip fracture surgery. Connecting your foot problems to this high-risk event significantly increases approval chances. Beyond insoles, you can perform minor adjustments on your shoes. If a shoe pinches over a bunion, a shoe stretcher can expand that specific area without affecting the overall fit. For rubbing spots, small adhesive moleskin pads create a protective buffer. These aren't fixes for fundamentally wrong shoes, but they can perfect otherwise good ones. 6 months ago, James could barely manage 1,000 steps without pain. Today, his daily average exceeds 5,000 comfortable steps. His physical therapist measured a 38% improvement in his single-leg balance test. Last weekend, he wasn't just doing yard work. He was hiking a nature trail with his grandchildren, something he thought he'd lost forever. Your future mobility isn't determined by luck or genetics. It's decided every morning when you choose what to put on your feet. These aren't just shoes. They're the tools that will carry you toward an active, confident, independent future. The power is in your hands. Look at the shoes by your door right now and ask yourself, are they helping me or hurting me?